Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world where noise is celebrated. The louder you are, the more attention you get. The busier your schedule, the more valuable you must be. But then, there's her. The woman who sits quietly at the coffee shop with a book in hand. The woman who takes long walks with her thoughts as her only company. The woman who doesn't flinch at the idea of going to dinner alone. Who enjoys her own silence more than the approval of 1,000 strangers. And that is dangerous. Now I want to clarify what I mean by dangerous. I don't mean violent. I don't mean threatening. I mean powerful. I mean unshakable. I mean that she doesn't rely on validation from the outside world to feel worthy. And that's a kind of power that can't be bought, borrowed, or broken. In a world that constantly celebrates being busy, being social, and being seen, the idea of choosing solitude often feels countercultural. But there's a unique strength that comes from being alone, not the kind of loneliness that drains, but the kind of solitude that restores. A woman who chooses to spend time alone, intentionally and consistently, begins to build something incredibly rare in today's world, inner strength. When she sits alone with her thoughts, something powerful happens. There's no mask to wear, no role to play, no noise to drown out the truth. It's just her raw, real, and unfiltered. And in that space, she learns to listen to herself in a way that the outside world never teaches. She becomes intimately familiar with her emotions, her dreams, her triggers, and her values. She learns how to calm her own storms. She becomes the source of her own peace. Most people run from silence because they're afraid of what they'll hear. But she doesn't run, she leans in, and by doing so, she builds emotional muscles most people never develop. She learns patience, self-control, resilience. She practices clarity over chaos, depth over distraction. Over time, this quiet self-work becomes the foundation of a strength that can't be shaken by someone else's opinion or behavior. Because when you've sat with your own sadness and found your way back, you become unafraid of the dark. When you've tasted your own joy without needing someone else to create it, you become independent of praise. You stop chasing approval and start walking in alignment. That kind of strength, it's not loud, but it's unmistakable. People often mistake her quiet for weakness, but what they don't realize is that solitude is her training ground. While others are outsourcing their confidence, she's building hers from the inside out. She becomes someone who doesn't need anyone to complete her, and ironically, that's what makes her presence so powerful. This kind of inner strength isn't just rare, it's revolutionary. In a world addicted to distraction, a woman who knows how to be alone, and more importantly, how to thrive in her own company, becomes unstoppable. Not because she's hardened, but because she's whole. There's something profoundly powerful about a woman who no longer seeks validation from the outside world. In a culture obsessed with likes, followers, compliments, and approval, choosing to validate yourself quietly, consistently is nothing short of revolutionary. A woman who spends time alone learns how to do just that. She stops measuring her worth based on other people's opinions. She no longer needs someone to tell her she's enough because she's already decided that she is. This kind of self-trust isn't born overnight. It's earned through stillness. When she steps away from the noise, the constant scrolling, comparing, and performing, she begins to discover who she really is when no one's watching. She learns what she likes because she likes it, not because it's trending. She starts to dress for how she feels, not for how she'll be perceived. Her decisions stop revolving around what will they think, and start revolving around what feels right for me. And when that shift happens, everything changes. She becomes harder to impress, because she no longer needs someone else's applause to feel successful. She becomes more selective, not out of arrogance, but because she knows her value. She no longer clings to relationships that drain her just to feel wanted. She no longer performs to fit in with people who don't see her. She's not chasing attention, she's commanding respect. People often misinterpret this kind of self-assurance. They might call her cold, distant, or intimidating, but really, what they're witnessing is someone who has broken free from the cycle of needing external affirmation. She's no longer living for the applause, she's living for alignment. That's not cold, that's courageous. When a woman stops seeking validation, she becomes a force. Her peace can't be disrupted by gossip. Her worth can't be questioned by rejection. She's no longer playing to win approval, she's walking in purpose. And that's what makes her dangerous in the best way possible. Because a woman who doesn't need to be chosen knows how to choose herself, again and again. A woman who spends time alone doesn't just withdraw from the noise of the world. She does so to build something more important, a set of personal standards that govern how she interacts with others. While many people rely on external validation to shape their relationships and decisions, a woman who knows the value of solitude learns to set her own terms. She doesn't close herself off. She simply becomes clear on what she will accept and what she won't. This clarity is not a barrier, but a reflection of her self-worth. By spending time in solitude, she becomes in tune with her own needs, desires, and boundaries. She knows when to say yes, and just as importantly, when to say no. This doesn't come from a place of fear or avoidance. It comes from a deep understanding of who she is and what she stands for. She doesn't tolerate disrespect, nor does she let anyone treat her as less than she is. Her boundaries are firm, not to push others away, but to protect her energy and preserve the relationships that truly matter. She doesn't need constant reassurance that she is valuable. She has learned to be her own source of strength and validation. This inner security allows her to be open with others, but only with those who respect her for who she truly is. She's not afraid to walk away from situations, relationships, or environments that don't align with her values. And that, right there, is the power of solitude. It creates space for self-reflection, helping her to determine what aligns with her inner truth. Most people mistake her boundaries for weakness or coldness. But in reality, they are a sign of her strength. Setting standards isn't about being rigid or inflexible. It's about creating space for relationships and experiences that are fulfilling, not draining. When she chooses who she allows into her life, it's not an act of exclusion, but an act of empowerment. Her clarity in setting standards doesn't just protect her, it elevates everyone around her. People are drawn to her confidence and self-assurance because it shows them the importance of valuing themselves first. She leads by example, teaching others that it's not about what you accept from the world, but what you are willing to give and receive. A woman who embraces solitude doesn't just grow in self-awareness. She also builds emotional independence, a quality that is incredibly powerful yet often misunderstood. In a world where relationships are often defined by emotional dependence, where we rely on others to make us feel good about ourselves or to fill the gaps in our lives, learning to stand alone creates a profound shift. For her, being alone is not synonymous with being lonely. Instead, it's a time of restoration and growth, a time to reconnect with herself and her own inner resources. Emotional independence doesn't mean detachment or a lack of connection with others. In fact, it's quite the opposite. When a woman is emotionally independent, she enters relationships from a place of strength, not need. She knows how to manage her own emotions, how to find peace within herself, and how to meet her own needs. This doesn't make her cold or distant. It makes her self-sufficient. She is able to navigate the ups and downs of life with a calmness that comes from knowing she can weather any storm, whether she's with someone or standing alone. When she experiences joy, it's because she's found it within herself, not because someone else has given it to her. She doesn't need someone to validate her worth, to reassure her that she's enough. She already knows she is. And when she faces difficult emotions, whether it's sadness, frustration, or disappointment, she doesn't rely on someone else to fix it for her. She confronts it, processes it, and moves forward, empowered by the knowledge that she can handle whatever comes her way. This emotional independence makes her incredibly resilient. She doesn't stay in relationships or situations that drain her just for the sake of avoiding loneliness or the discomfort of change. She knows her worth, and because of that, She's not afraid to walk away from anything that doesn't serve her well-being. She doesn't settle for relationships that leave her feeling empty, because she's already whole. She understands that loneliness isn't something to fear, but something to embrace as a time of growth and self-discovery. In a world where emotional dependence is often seen as a sign of affection, her ability to stand alone becomes her greatest strength. It gives her the power to choose who and what she allows into her life, not out of desperation, but from a place of strength. She's not afraid to walk alone because she knows that sometimes walking alone is the most empowering thing you can do. A woman who spends time alone doesn't just cultivate emotional independence or inner strength. She also learns how to love herself in a way that's truly abundant. In a world where love is often viewed as something you need to seek outside of yourself, the woman who is comfortable being alone has discovered that love isn't something that completes her. It's something she already possesses. This internal abundance becomes the foundation for how she loves others. When she loves, she does so without expectation or the need to be validated. She doesn't give in order to receive. She gives because her cup is already full. This kind of love is not transactional. It's not conditional. It's simply an expression of who she is. Her love flows freely because she has learned how to nourish herself, how to fill herself up with everything she needs before offering it to others. She doesn't rely on others to make her feel worthy of love because she already knows she is. This abundance of self-love is not an act of arrogance or self-centeredness. In fact, it's the opposite. When a woman loves herself unconditionally, she becomes more capable of offering unconditional love to others. She is not seeking validation or approval through her acts of kindness or affection. Instead, she gives because she understands the true meaning of love. She loves from a place of peace and self-awareness, not from a place of insecurity or neediness. Furthermore, because she understands how to fill her own emotional reservoir, she doesn't enter relationships, friendships, or situations in search of fulfillment. She already feels complete. She chooses to love others not because she needs to be loved in return, but because love is a part of who she is. She has learned that love is not something to be hoarded or used as a tool to get what you want. It is a gift that, when shared freely, has the power to transform. Her love is intentional. She doesn't give herself away to anyone who isn't worthy of her time, attention, and affection. She knows her value and protects it. The love she offers is reserved for those who respect and appreciate her for who she truly is, not for the version of her they expect or want her to be. This creates relationships that are rooted in mutual respect and understanding, where both people give freely and without hesitation, because neither is relying on the other to fill an emotional void. A woman who loves herself abundantly becomes a beacon of warmth and generosity. She attracts relationships that are uplifting and empowering, not draining. And in doing so, she teaches others that love isn't something to chase or grasp for. It's something to nurture within yourself and then share with the world. A woman who is comfortable spending time alone develops a quiet yet undeniable presence that can't be overlooked. It's not the kind of presence that demands attention, but the kind that commands respect through consistency, clarity, and self-assurance. While many people feel the need to prove themselves or seek constant validation, the woman who embraces solitude has already done the internal work required to know who she is. This self-awareness gives her a sense of purpose that is unwavering, and it makes her a leader in the truest sense of the word. She leads not through force or authority, but through example. The way she carries herself, calm, composed, and unshaken by external chaos, serves as an inspiration to those around her. She doesn't need to say much for her presence to be felt. Simply by being herself, she invites others to reflect on their own lives, their own choices, and the way they show up in the world. People are drawn to her because there's a sense of certainty and strength in her energy. They want to understand how she remains so grounded, so unwavering, in a world full of distractions. This kind of leadership doesn't come from a desire for control, but from a place of profound confidence. She doesn't have to convince anyone of her worth or demand attention. Her worth is inherent, and her energy speaks for itself. When she speaks, people listen, not because she's louder or more forceful, but because there's a depth and authenticity in her words. She doesn't try to be everything for everyone. Instead, she remains true to herself, which is a message in itself. The true power of her leadership is in the way she teaches others to be self-sufficient and to trust themselves. She shows by example that it's okay to stand alone, that solitude is not something to fear, but something to embrace. She demonstrates that emotional independence, clarity of purpose, and self-love are the foundations of a fulfilling life. Her leadership doesn't require followers to be dependent on her. Instead, it empowers them to become leaders in their own right. By choosing to walk alone, she leads the way for others to follow. Her life is a reflection of what it looks like to choose yourself, to trust yourself, and to lead with authenticity. And while the world may often overlook quiet leaders, it's these very leaders who leave a lasting impact, not by competing for attention, but by showing up as their true selves. She teaches others that true leadership comes from within, and in that quiet strength, she becomes a beacon for those seeking to find their own path.